Om Shri Ganesha Gurubhyo Namaha. In continuation with our Guru Tattva series, we bring forth the message of one of the greatest spiritual masters of the 15th and 16th century in Punjab. But before we go ahead with the biographical details of this great saint, let's first have an insight of what Punjab was back then. The modern day Punjab is a much smaller geographical unit than what it was in the 13th, 14th, or even the 15th century to a certain extent. The only common thing that was present in Punjab then and now is the fertility of the land thanks to the 5 tributary rivers of Ravi, Chenab, Jhelum, Beas and Satluj. The fertility of Punjab was also one of the reasons that it was subjected to frequent foreign invasions, be it the Aryans, the Greeks, the Persians and so on. And therefore this intermingling of race, religion, culture, language had its effect on the population of Punjab. To an extent that some part of the population assimilated the cultures, some of them accommodated the cultures, some of them converted into some other religion, whereas a part of it did not want to convert at all. This led to a certain gulf or a gap between the two major groups which were present in Punjab at that time, the Hindus and the Muslims. Around that time was the Sufi movement. Sufi is a mystic clan of the Islamic culture. The Sufi movement to a certain extent tried to bridge this gap. Also there was a Bhakti movement all over India. The north of India has Sant Kabir who started the Bhakti movement. The western part of India had the Varkari movement propounded by Sant Jnaneshwar Mauli. The eastern part of India had Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who initiated the Bhakti movement. And the south, that is the Tamil Nadu, the Alvar movement had already started in the 7th or 8th century. The objective of the Sufi movement and the Bhakti movement was to break all barriers of social, gender and caste inequality. Though to a certain extent the Bhakti movement and the Sufism had an impact on an individual's personal spiritual growth, the effect it had on the social structure has little to be said. The social condition was very stubborn at that time, and therefore a shining beacon in a dark night sky was the birth of a great saint on the 15th of April 1469, who was none other than Guru Nanak Ji. He was born to parents Kalyan Chand and Tripta Bedi, and he was the second child of his parents, the first child being a daughter called Nanki. In those days, when the woman went to her mother's place, that is her maternal side for childbirth, if she gave birth to a baby girl, it was always a rule to be named as Nanki, and if the child was a baby boy, he would be named Nanak, because the maternal grandparents are called Nana and Nani in the local language. So that's how our Guru Nanak got his name. Nanak Ji as a young boy was very generous and very gifted. He was unlike all other children of his age, and this was already predicted to his parents at the time of his birth, because his birth also had a story. It is said that when Nanak Ji was born, usually all newborns cry loudly, but Nanak Ji went into peals of laughter. Possibly he was laughing at the social condition prevalent then. Also, the astrologers had predicted to his parents that this child was not a normal child, he was not an ordinary child, he was something paranormal, he was going to be the world master. Nanak Ji's young days were full of aloofness. He never liked to mingle with people, but he never kept them away deliberately. In fact, he always preferred to be lonely, he preferred to be aloof, and he was happy in his own company. The person who was the closest to him was his sister Nanki. She was more like a mother to him. He had also 2 close companions, a Hindu by the name Bala and a Muslim by the name Mardana, who was 9 years elder to him. Now, Nanak Ji had this habit of sitting all alone without mingling around with people, but this worried his father to a great extent. His mother tried to keep him occupied by sending him as a cowherd to look after the cattle. He would do all his jobs which were given to him very dutifully. But his father was still worried as to how would this boy progress in the material world in earning money. One day he gave him 20 silver coins and told him to go to the market which was on the other side of the village, and they had to cross a forest to go to that marketplace. It was a weekly bazaar. He told Nanakji to go there and buy provisions from there, come back to their village which was Talwandi, and sell the provisions here at a higher price and see how much profit he could manage with that. Nanakji was very eager to impress his father, so he took the 20 silver coins and set out to go to the marketplace with his friend Bala. On the way they had to cross a forest. It so happened that in that forest there were some Naga sadhus or Naga sannyasis, that is naked ascetics, who were also called Nirbanis. They had settled in that forest. Nanakji happened to see them and he was shocked that they did not wear any clothes. He also saw two of the sadhus lying on the ground, they were shivering and their knees had been very closely held to their stomach and they were just skin and bones. He saw a sadhu standing. He went to him, approached him and said, "Sir, why don't you people wear any clothes?" A very simple, innocent question. The sadhu said that this is the way we are. We are Naga sadhus, we are Nirbanis, and we give only whatever God gives us to eat. We don't ask people, we don't depend on people. We don't require clothes because when clothes are worn, it sets aside a certain desire in us and we don't want to have any desire. We have completely renounced the world. Nanakji then looked at the two ascetics who were lying down on the ground and he said, "Why are they lying down like that? Why are they so weak and frail?" The sadhu said that for a week we have not got any food. God has not sent us any food, and without food, this is their condition. Nanakji was taken aback at the way of life of these renunciates. He took their leave and set off with Bala to the marketplace. With the 20 silver coins, he purchased a lot amount of food and came back to the same forest on his return home. He saw the sadhus, he offered the food to them and said, "God has sent food for you." Handing over the food to them, he returned home back with Bala, and both of them were aware that their father was going to give them a severe scolding. On his return home, when his father asked him, "Where are the provisions? Haven't you purchased anything with the silver coins which I gave you? You were supposed to buy those provisions. You were supposed to sell it in our village here and earn a good profit." Nanakji said that I have got a bigger profit, and that is a profit for my soul. That is my Sacha Sauda. Sacha Sauda means a true profit or true trade is when you give something to someone who needs it instead of being selfish and hoarding it among yourself. Seeing this nature of his son, Kalyan Chand was very much worried. Time passed and a few months later, Nanki got married to Jairam and she settled off in Sultanpur. Nanak was left even more lonely now, and one day his father decided that he sends Nanak to Nanki at Sultanpur so that he could get a job there and he could also be in the company of his sister. Nanakji was only too glad and he left with his friend Mardana. Mardana was a rabab player, and as all of us know, he was one of the closest companions of Nanakji. Nanakji's hymns without the rabab are incomplete. So he set off with Mardana and both of them went to Sultanpur. Nanakji got a job there and they lived there. After some time, he even got married. His wife Sulakhni gave birth to two sons, Shri Chand and Lakshmi Chand. Nanakji's life was going on very smoothly. His householder life was really picking up well. One day when he went to the river to have a bath and did not return for a long time, Sulakhni sent Mardana to check where he is. He said, "Check out where Nanakji has gone. He hasn't returned from his bath." Mardana searched everywhere, but he couldn't find Nanak Ji anywhere, and they were worried that possibly he may have drowned. In the meantime, Nanak Ji had a spiritual awakening while having a bath in the river. He came back home on his own, all the time muttering to himself only one thing: there is no Hindu, there is no Mussalman, there is only one God. He kept repeating this, and that is possibly the spiritual awakening which gave rise to the Moola Mantra or the Japji Sahib. The Japji Sahib or the Moola Mantra is Ek Omkar Satnam Karta Purakh. That is, he is the only one absolute truth. There is no hate, there is no fear of him. So this Japji Sahib is got many stanzas to it. It is generally recited in the wee hours of the morning, which is called the Amrit Bela or the Brahma Muhurta between 3:30 and 5:30. It is not to be sung as a song. It is a recitation which is for contemplative and meditative purpose. The words touch your soul because they remind you of your goal as a human being. It reminds you not to get strayed in the wayfare of the world, but to remember that the goal of man is to realize him, the absolute truth. This is a very important mantra, and this has been recited for so many centuries, and even now it is recited with great devotion, not only by the Sikhs but all over the world by all the followers of Guru Nanak Ji. On his return home, when he kept saying that there is no Hindu, there is no Mussalman, but there is only one God, he also realized that there was a voice which spoke to him, telling him that he had to spread this mission of humanity all over the world. He asked Sulakhani for permission to go on a spiritual journey with Mardana, and he said that I will be back after some years. Let me travel and spread this message, which has been my mission, my spiritual mission for which I was born. The spiritual journeys of Nanak Ji are called Udasis. He travelled with Mardana for 23 years in 3 different phases, intermittently coming home, being with his family, and again leaving for the next Udasi. Udasi is a spiritual journey or a pilgrim place. It's a pilgrimage. When he went for these Udasis, he learnt a lot. He spread the message of God also to all of them. It is found that during these Udasis, he had some experiences. One of them is the meeting with the Siddhas. The Siddhas have a discussion with Nanak Ji, and that is mentioned in a separate part in the Guru Granth Sahib called as a Siddha Gosht. The Siddhas' conversation or discussion with Nanak Ji is in 2 parts. One part is where they ask him about his attire. They say that if you are a man who's on the path of realization, then why is your attire different? Why is it not like us as the Siddhas who are in a different orange or ochre colored robes? He explains to them that what you wear is not going to decide what is your spiritual journey. Of course, there's a lot to it there. The second part of the Siddha Gosht is about the philosophy and certain practices of the Sikh religion which Nanak Ji had founded. The word Sikh comes from the Sanskrit word Shishya, a learner, a disciple, and therefore Sikhism is one of the world's youngest religion, and it is supposed to be propounding no dogmatic principles. It doesn't have any theologies or philosophies to follow. It has got very simple message. We will be coming through those messages in the later part of the narrative. During the Siddha Gosht, he happened to meet very great saints, very great Siddhas of the Nath Panth. One of them is Charpat Nath. The discussions which he had with them told him that there was no need for one to leave the world and sit in the forest to realize God or to have enlightenment spiritually on him. It was possible for one to be a householder, carry on his regular duties and still attain God. He said it was not difficult The only thing, very simple duties that a householder has to do is he has to earn money honestly, share that money, and chant the name of the Lord. He says these are simple rules of living. There's nothing very difficult in this. This philosophy is spread all over, not only in India but even outside India. It is said that he had even been to Iran, Iraq, Tibet, and so many other places. These udasis or these journeys that he had with Mardana speak a lot about the spiritual pursuit of not only Guru Nanak Ji but even of Mardana. In one of the udasis, we come to know one more message of the Guru. It's like this, that once when they were tired from their journey, they were walking for a very long distance, they took rest below a tree. It was evening dusk time, and Nanak Ji asked Mardana to go to the nearby village and see if he could get some food for them. Mardana walked to the village and knocked on the door of one of the houses there. The villager opened it and he looked at Mardana very angrily. "What is it you want?" he asked him. "We are travelers, we are very tired and weary. My guru and myself, we need some food to eat. Can you offer us some food?" The villager shooed him away. "Get away from here," he said. "Go away from here. I work hard, I earn money for my family, not to give mendicants and beggars like you." Mardana was taken aback. Asking for food was supposed to be his job, but offering it, whether in a nice way or not, was this man's reaction to it. He was really stunned by the reception that he got. Anyway, he went on to the next door. There also he got the same response. 5-6 houses in that village, he got the same response. So he came back to Nanak Ji, very tired and weary. Nanak Ji looked at his face and realized what the situation was. So he said, "Doesn't matter, Mardana. Possibly the Almighty does not want us to sleep with our stomach full tonight. Let's sleep empty stomach. We'll get up in the morning and see what can be done." Both of them rested below the tree. Early morning, they got up, they went to the river, had a wash, and as they were approaching the tree again to take some rest, they found a group of villagers walking towards them with sticks in their hand and very serious and grave expression on their faces. The villagers asked them, "Who are you? Why have you come here? In our village, we don't allow any mendicants or beggars to roam around. Leave from here immediately or we'll hit you with these sticks." Nanak Ji folded his hands, apologized to them, and raised both his hands as if to bless them and said, "May your village be prosperous, and let the prosperity of your village remain in the confines of your village only." They walked further. Mardana and Nanak Ji walked. They came the same evening to another village. This time Mardana was a little apprehensive about knocking the door of any of the villagers' house because he was scared he would get the same response. But the reception they got in this village was something very different. The villagers not only welcomed the two but also gave them a night's rest in their houses. Mardana was very happy because he could eat stomach full, and they both took a very nice nap. Next morning, when they were back with their morning rituals and about to leave, Nanak Ji raised his hands and blessed the village and said, "May your village be prosperous, and let the prosperity of your village be spread far and wide in the world." The blessing that Nanak Ji gave to both the villages surprised Mardana. He said, "I can understand he blessed this village, but why has he blessed the earlier village, which was rude to us?" So he asked, as they leave for their journey further, he asked Nanak Ji, "Why have you blessed both the villages, though one of them was rude to us and one of them was very hospitable to us?" Nanak Ji said, "The first village where people were rude, I blessed them. Let that rudeness, the prosperity of their rudeness remain in that village. Let it not poison people outside the village. Whereas in the second village where people were kind and hospitable, I blessed them. Let their kindness pour out more into the world. So let the world be a better place because of villages like them." So the main message Guru Nanak Ji gives us through this is, whatever is the condition of an individual, however rich or poor he may be, there's one thing that he has to learn, and that is to share what he has. The Guru Granth Sahib is considered a holy text, and it is supposed to be one of the, it has got so many hymns which are composed by Guru Nanak Ji. In this Guru Granth, there is one composition which reminds us of his sacred thread ceremony, and the composition is that with the cotton of compassion and spin a thread of contentment, tie knots of truth and absolute values in it, and see you create a sacred thread for your soul. That sacred thread which will not burn, which will not dirty, which will not get spoiled. So this particular composition in the Guru Granth reminds you of his first rebel that he had against ritualistic customs. Nanak Ji believed in religion, but he did not believe in the superstitions which were laced along with it. He had only 3 main objectives in his life, and he asked his followers, the Sikhs, to follow that. First of all, he said, have langar. Second, he said, have pangat. And third, he said, have sangat. So the langar, pangat and sangat were 3 principles that he asked his followers to do. Now here there were no dogmatic principles, because he never believed in them. He never believed in strict rules or principles that should be adhered to. He said, do what your soul feels happy. He also was a messenger of social equality and equality for women in all aspects of life. Some of his hymns are also devoted to women in the Guru Granth Sahib. Like Jnaneshwar Mauli, he also was against the authoritative rule of the Muslim clergy or the Hindu priest with their Arabic or Sanskrit philosophies to be told to people. He felt these were not custodians of God's words, and so he aborted all these principles, and whatever was a simple folk language, the Punjabi language, in that he created or composed his hymns. So today his hymns are soul touching only because they are spoken in a language which we all understand, not in some high language of maybe a language which we do not really define ourselves with. In the same way, Jnaneshwar Mauli also gave us the Jnaneshwari and the Haripat, which was supposed to be translated in Prakrit, that is old Marathi, from Sanskrit. So these were saints who believed that everyone was equal in the eyes of God and everyone deserved to know what the Lord said. After his third Udasi, that is when he finished his 23rd year of his spiritual travel, he realized that he needed a successor who could spread the message of humanity, the oneness of God, further. Though he had 2 sons, he never selected them because one, that is Sri Chand, was an ascetic. He had not taken the householder life, but he did not want to set a precedent. Nanak Ji did not want to set a precedent that Sikhism is to be followed only by those people who are renunciates. He wanted people to know that you can attain spirituality, you can attain the highest level of enlightenment even if you are a householder. You need not be an ascetic or a monk or one who's a renunciate for it. His other son Lakshmi Chand was married, he was a householder, but he was not with a spiritual bent of mind. So he realized that both his sons would not be able to carry forth his message, and so he initiated Guru Angad. Angad means one who comes from the body of the Guru himself. So Guru Angad became the successor to Guru Nanak Ji, and he carries forth the message of Guru Nanak Ji. The last days of Guru Nanak were spent at Kartarpur in Pakistan. He becomes a householder once more to again give an exemplary demonstration that spiritual awakening does not mean renunciation. So His three words which are important for all of us, which even today is followed knowingly or unknowingly in many corporate houses, in many board meetings, is the langar, sangat and pangat. Langar is having a food which is being cooked and shared irrespective of whatever caste or creed you belong to. You have to cook food, you have to share the food with others. That's what a langar means. Sangat is supposed to be where you take decisions on a common interest. You take decisions on a common basis without having any partiality towards anyone in a very judicious manner. Pangat is supposed to be where you sit along with anyone or rather everyone from society and have your food or share your food. So langar is where you share food, you cook food. Pangat is where you sit with everyone and have your food. And sangat is where you have a common consensus. You bring out a difference or you share out all your thoughts and ideas in front of people, come to a common consensus for the betterment of society. So he felt, Nanakji felt that if society had to progress or if one has to have a nation advancing spiritually, not only is personal spiritual growth important, but society's spiritual growth also needs to be monitored. So therefore this langar, sangat and pangat were his three magic words, which even today we follow in many of our corporate houses. As I mentioned earlier, don't you find in board meetings, there are group of people, a team which sits together, discusses things, sorts out the issues and then comes to a common consensus. This is sangat. During their lunch times, they sit along with others irrespective of what caste or creed they belong to, share their food also. So this is langar as well as sangat and pangat. So if you see, his message is knowingly or unknowingly going to various strata of society, various sections of society. People are following it, and that is the only way in which we can give our humble pranams to the great Guru. Vahe Guru Satnam.